In this next session, we've got a couple of things we want to do quickly. First, Alistair Dunning from JISC is going to mention a few things about some new funding possibilities that are coming out of JISC. And then Catherine Eccles is going to talk more about the Tidsr Toolkit and its relaunch from the original version. And then, sorry, your first name, Susie Woodhouse, is going to be talking about Didjapedia and its efforts to link different sorts of information sources available that are available to researchers in the UK. So let's start with Alistair.
Okay, thank you very much, Eric. I'm going to be very quick. I just wanted to say that subject to signing off by the appropriate JISC committees, there will be new calls for funding within the JISC digitisation and content programme. These are likely to be coming out at the start of June. We're putting details about them as we learn more about them and get more permission to put them up on the JISC digitisation blog. We also have a mailing list, JISC-digital-content at gismail.ac.uk, where we put out these messages too. But there are likely to be 3 strands of funding or 3 strands of ideas or concepts in this future call. One will be looking at digitising archival resources, special collections and other scholarly material for creating Creative Commons open educational resources. That's the first one. The second one will be looking at large-scale digitisation, so creating or extending existing digital resources and then getting them embedded in research and teaching with new digital content. And then the third strand is likely to be clustering existing digital content, so following on from a theme that we've explored before about bringing existing digital content together, different types and different ranges, and putting that together in a kind of single, silo breaking resource or whatever. So those are the 3 things that we're hoping, not confirmed as yet, but very, very likely. I think 90% sure they'll be going through with them. The calls like to come out at the start or middle of June in those 3 particular strands. And if you'd like to talk about ideas or discuss anything with me, then come and grab me sometime today. Thanks. That's all.
Having whetted your appetite, let me sell you on the toolkit for the impact of digitised scholarly resources. Here we have the new look toolkit. If you were not looking in the last week, you're probably more familiar with the older version. Here it is, all shiny and new. We've tried to make it a little bit more user-friendly than it was before, a little bit nicer to look at. And we've been updating some of the articles in the toolkit. So I'll just run through our ideas about the toolkit, why we think it's useful, why you might want to use it. I'll give you a little quick demo of the site. There's nothing very difficult in there. And then finally, I'm going to make a plea for all of you to add content, please. Okay, so as Eric said before, the Tidsr Toolkit grew out of a project that we did for JISC a couple of years ago on the usage and impact of resources, and the new projects that have been operating recently have contributed to the richness of the data that we created for JISC in that original project. When we did our project, we were really sort of feeling our way in determining what methods might or might not be useful for judging usage and impact. And I should make a plea that I was a historian when I came onto this project. I'd never used anything like these methods before, and like somebody said earlier, I'd never done research on anyone who could talk back and say no, that's wrong. So I was very much a beginner as well. And when we came to put the toolkit together, we tried really hard to describe the methods and to describe the pathways through the toolkit as I would find them useful back then as a total beginner, having never done any kind of research in this area before. So I hope that comes across. I hope it's as easy for you to use as possible. And if you have any comments, please either use the Contact Us button on the website to tell us, or email me or Eric and make some suggestions, because we're always open to making it easier to use. The people that we thought would find this toolkit useful would be content creators, publishers, the people that you've seen here at the front this morning, archivists and institutional staff involved in digitisation efforts, and representatives of funders like JISC who have brilliantly taken hold of our original Tidsr Toolkit and repurposed it for this latest study. We also hope that researchers and research directors interested in learning more about impact of online activities will find this useful, and anyone interested in understanding the impact of distributing materials online. But why should you use the toolkit? Well, I hope I don't really need to answer this question, having seen the results from this morning. There are, some terrific measures of impact that you can find by using some of these measures. Evidence, it's really important to be able to provide evidence of the impact that you're making for lots of different reasons, to prove your sort of your reason for existence to the funders that have generously handed over cash for you to build your resource, perhaps to make a bid for future funding, to show that there are gaps perhaps in your audience, or you could design a new impact project using some of the resources in the toolkit as part of expanding and embedding your resource. It's really important to be able to answer those questions with something a bit more definite. You need to start from somewhere. I was thrilled to hear this morning that how useful TIDSA had been to the projects who've used it. It's important to have a set of measures that are sort of standard. You can measure yourself against the projects that have used this toolkit before, have used these measures before, and you can see where you are in a community of resources. How are you performing against a previous case study that you associate yourself with, or how are you different from another case study that's bigger than you or smaller than you? It's really important to see yourself as part of a community. And continue the ripple effect, to steal Eric's metaphor. If you use this toolkit and you produce some great results, you can add those results to the toolkit, put yourself in the case studies, comment on a measure that you found really useful, comment on a measure that you found really difficult to use and you want to give some help to somebody else who might be thinking about using it. That's a great reason to contribute. And this, we've put all this information out there for free, and we hope that people will contribute with the same sort of generosity of spirit. Okay. So how do you use the toolkit? Well, like I say, it was made for an idiot, for me, so hopefully it'll be really straightforward for everybody else. I thought if you're a complete beginner, if you've never used any of these metrics before, I think a brilliant place to start is with the case studies. All the case studies that you've heard about this morning are in here. You can read the full reports. So if you've never done anything, any research of this kind before, it's so useful to be able to think about a project that's similar to your resource that you think you might want to achieve the same results. Have a look and see how they've approached their project, how they've ordered their methods, which methods they found particularly useful. That will give you some insight into which methods would be appropriate for your project. Or maybe it's completely different and you want to use a completely different set of methods. That might work too. Our original project is in there, the impact of JISC Phase 1 digitisation. The way that case study differs is that it compares 5 different resources. It also talks about a slightly broader community of resources. We tried to provide a context for the metrics that we were using. So there will be, apart from those 5 projects that Eric mentioned earlier, there are a lot of other projects that we gathered data about simply in order to be able to contextualise the data that we gathered. So that's where I would start if I was a total beginner. If you're a total pro, or you've got quite a lot of research experience, you might want to just dive into the methods. So for instance, if you want to go and start with your qualitative methods, what we've tried to do is start with a what is article, just briefly describing what we think this method is all about. Then within almost all the methods, there'll be software tools, somewhere that you can go and download what you need to do this research. There'll be a bibliography so you can read more. And all the way through, you can comment, you can add attachments, you can stick in an extra document that's a better what is content analysis. Please do contribute. We'd love to have things like that in there. Okay, what else can you do with it? Well, you can add content. So please do. All you need to do is create yourself an account right at the bottom here. there's a little button where you can create a new account. You do have to register in order to use some of the features of the toolkit. So in order to comment, in order to add an article, in order to add any kind of material, you will need to create an account. And there's a really good reason for that. Well, there's two really good reasons. One is it means we don't get bombarded with spam and you don't see any gratuitous material when you come along to the TIDSA, which is very important. But also, you know, this is all about impact. If you register and put your name to your contributions, then that increases your impact and, you know, and the network of resources that you're connected to. So it's a really good thing to do. So I'll just sign in here. Okay, so once you're logged in, on the left-hand side of the screen there, you get your knowledge base. So this is where you can add a new article. It's the quickest way of adding new material. So if I click on that tab, I'll just give you a quick click. Here we are. You can pop in your article title. Make sure you attribute yourself as the creator of the content. This little text box at the bottom can be a little bit tricky if you're transporting material from Word, but don't worry, it will figure it out. But if you're starting to write from scratch, I would encourage you to use something like Notepad or to type directly on the screen. You can connect it to the articles that are already there. So, for instance, if it's a quantitative method, you can select what kind of quantitative method your article is about, or qualitative. And in that way, when your article is in the toolkit, it will show up on pages that have similar content, so it'll make it easier for people to find relevant material. And that's it, you know, just pile in, put your text in, you can add an attachment, and then you just save it, and it'll come to me or it'll come to Eric and we'll publish it, and it'll be out there for everybody to use. So please do this if you have useful knowledge, which I know you all do. Also comments, it's really helpful to get comments on the methods. You know, some of the studies that we did are a couple of years old now, and it would be great if, you know, people from those resources could comment and say, hey, we've updated that method, or we've done it again and we found this result and it was tremendous and we've discovered something new about our usage. We'd love to know information about that. So please do comment, tell us what you think of our methods. Even if you think they suck, it'd be good to know. And that's it. I won't take up too much more of your time, but I'll hand over to Susie Woodhouse, who's going to talk about Digipedia, and then both Susie and I will stick around for questions at the end if people have specific questions. Thanks.
Thank you also to Catherine and the OII for asking us to come here and do this quick demonstration. I should explain that I'm a member of the team led by Chris Batt Consulting who worked on Digipedia. Ooh. That's right, it's not a life support system. He's in Berlin and I'm in Oxford, so I think I got the better deal there. So let me what I want to do is just, excuse me, give you a bit of background and then just briefly take you through, much in the way that Catherine did with her evaluation impact tools. So Digipedia was undertaken with funding from JISC for the Strategic Content Alliance. Many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the Alliance, which is just a group of UK public sector bodies who are committed to, if you like, improving the UK's digital content holding. So there's a better return on public investment, always a good thing these days, capital letters. And most importantly, so that good practice is advanced and practiced by everyone who's involved. And the aim of Digipedia is threefold, I think, to create an authoritative synthesis of advice and guidance from expert sources on managing digital content, and you've all had experience of that, and to create a community of users and people who do manage digital content so that they can share experiences and contribute case studies, much in the way that the impact site is asking you to do. So underpinning all of that, of course, is this whole ethos of the adoption of good practice on as wide a basis as possible. Just a couple of words on the technical build for Digipedia. I have to disclaim any technical knowledge here whatsoever. So this is what our technical developer told me to say. We chose a wiki environment for the content because it's something that's familiar to most people. You've all used Wikipedia, etc., etc. And we've used MediaWiki software to build that. And we've also embedded the potential for structured queries of the content to happen. And we've used Semantic Media Wiki markup for that. And in the collaborative space, that's run by WordPress with a BuddyPress plugin. So you're in a familiar sort of blog-like environment. Again, very similar to what Catherine showed you, so that's good. It's nice to be somewhere familiar, isn't it? And I think the other thing to say is that this is a pilot. Please bear that in mind while we do just go through some of the features, and because it's quite likely that pages will load quite slowly because it's on a development server rather than the huge mega fast whatever it is. Anyway, here we go. First time users will get this welcome to Didjapedia little box so that you have the opportunity just to read about the background. I expect you've all been doing that while I've been talking. And then just obviously close it, and there we are at the home page. We've set up a number of obvious ways of getting at content. There's a search box, there's an A to Z browse, and we've also added a number of quick links from the kinds of topics which we think people are likely to want information on quickly and easily. And I think the other thing to say is that we've drawn content because this whole business of synthesizing expert advice and guidance is what drives the Digipedia knowledge base. We've drawn content from a number of sources, obviously from the Strategic Content Alliance, who have commissioned material on IPR and licensing, on business modelling and sustainability, and on audience research, 3 incredibly important areas if you're even thinking about creating online content. And from other JISC-funded bodies, including JISC TechDis, UConn, hello Brian, and JISC Digital Media, who are all expert bodies in providing advice in different areas of managing digital content. We've also been further afield, out into the big wide world, and we've included other expert sources such as material from Make It Digital, which is Digital New Zealand's equivalent, if you like, of Digipedia, and from the framework and guidelines for good practice from the Institute of Museum and Library Studies in Washington, D.C., which they published jointly with NISO. So already there's a sort of global atmosphere to this. And as I say, we've got different approaches to suit different needs for getting to content. So let's do the getting started route, which is always a good place to start. Will it work? Did it press anything?
Yes.
It did? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I'm not sure it did, you know. Let's try again. This is good, isn't it? Talk amongst yourselves. Oh dear. It's surely not that slow. Well, it's doing something up there. The idea is, she says, improvising while the content refuses to load. I said it was a pilot, and it worked yesterday. The idea is with the getting started is that it's a sort of broad introduction to the resources that are on Digipedia. And you'll find there's obviously an introductory paragraph about the importance of digital content. And then there are a number of different broad principles of managing a digital content program from NISO, of the different elements of managing through the digital content life cycle from New Zealand's Make It Digital, sources of advice and guidance that you find in the UK, and this is really not good.
Maybe your server's having problems. I can't get in there
Really? Well, okay. Undaunted. You would see, this is where a colleague of mine would say, now we'll go to the radio version because everything else has gone up the chute. So, oh, ta-da! Oh dear. Anyway, maybe we won't do quite as much investigation because we may be here till tea time. Anyway, you can see immediately you're in a familiar sort of wiki page environment, aren't you? We've dressed it up with nice little icons for the home page, for the A to Z listing, for a search, and for if you want to print a page. But you've got the contents, and we've tried to. Well, we haven't tried. We have structured each page in the same sort of way. So you get the substance of an article at the beginning. You get a little overview, which is what will appear if you search the knowledge base. You'll get the search results with those first few lines of the overview. So you get the context for the search returns. This is just the digital content, the importance. And here we are, the synthesis of material coming through from the framework of guidance that NISO and the IMLS did. Here we have good practice tips for managing digital content from New Zealand's Make It Digital. Then we go on, and we get through those, and then we go on to just outlining the various guides on Digipedia, which we're presenting in the different areas of digital content management, including the digital content lifecycle, da-di-da-di-da. And then very much in the way of what you would expect with a wiki page, we have related articles within Digipedia, we have links to other articles outside Digipedia, and we then go on to a section which is harvested links to other resources. And one of the things that we're experimenting with as part of Digipedia is to build in a sort of RSS thing, because I don't know what the technical term is, but we'll use thing as a technical term, which goes off and searches a target website for relevant articles. You type the string and you type in the search terms, obviously, as part of that RSS string. And it comes back on the fly so that you know that every time you load that page, if something new has gone on to that particular website and it's relevant, you're going to get it back. So that's quite a good thing. And at the moment, we've worked with Collections Trust, who were also a partner with the Digipedia team. And this is pointing at the Collections Link website within Collections Trust, bringing back stuff. Now, we haven't done that with every page, because clearly it's not necessarily going to be, that website is not necessarily going to be relevant for every article in Digipedia. But what we hope will happen further down the line is that other bodies within JISC, outside JISC perhaps, will be able to set up that kind of link, and there will be a lot more richness in terms of the results that you get back. At the bottom you can see the Semantic Media Wiki markup, which will be what the structured queries are based on, and of course, as you would expect, the usual wiki categories, so each page is categorized to a greater or lesser extent. Now, dare I try another click? Oh, go on, Susie, be a devil. Here we go. I wanted to show you one of the... Oh, golly, my God, that was quick. I haven't got my brain around it. This is an example of a presentation of resources commissioned by the Strategic Content Alliance. And the material that they commissioned on IPR and licensing comes on the SCA website as, I think, 3 large PDF files, which is great if that's what you want. But what we felt would also be useful would be a way of breaking that down so that you can get more quickly into the bit that you want of that particular toolkit. So we've done a little overview. We've also prefaced it with other sources of expert advice on IPR and licensing. So they're mostly from the same source, those of you who know who does all this IPR work. And so they're there. And there's a little article about the whole business of IPR and licensing taken from the SCA package. And then we link to the individual toolkit resources, which are all on Didjapedia, so that you can go quickly to the piece of information that you need at that time, or the template, or the FAQ, or whatever. Here we go, related Didjapedia links, further information, and again we've got some harvested links there. Now, what shall I dare to try next? Let's go to the A to Z, so that I can show you an article which we have reused from an expert JISC source. So let's go to this one, which has been reused from the Yukon website with their blessing. Thank you, Brian. And it simply presents the article, and of course at the bottom we have made it clear where it's come from and what the license for use of that particular article is. And the other variant on synthesis, presentation, etc., is an article from JISC TechDis, which we commissioned from them and which they produced for us, as it seemed entirely appropriate that they should write on accessibility. So that's a general overview of accessibility. Again, marrying up the importance of using the whole mindset of accessible materials within the whole of the digital content life cycle, and presenting all the tools that are available to help you do that. More sources with advice and guidance, related articles, etc., etc. So you get the picture. Now, obviously, because this is a pilot, the content bulges here and is very thin there and bulges somewhere else. So one of the things that it would be really wonderful to hear from you and your colleagues is areas where you go away and play with this, areas where you think it needs to be fleshed out, because of course it's work in progress. And not to be outdone on the case studies front, we too have case studies, and they're jolly good, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And we've got two ways of we pepper the whole place with case studies, but we've also gathered them together under a page originally called Case Studies, and we've ordered them in the digital content lifecycle sequence that we're using, so that you can see that. And each one of these has their own particular page, so you can browse through those. And of course, if you want to, you can go to the category page, which will give you an A to Z summary of all of those. Again, if you have case studies you want to contribute, please do. It's wonderful to have experience of things that have gone well and things that have perhaps not been so good. So if you've got things, let us have them. And then briefly, as I'm desperately aware that lunch is getting cold, what I'd like to do is show you very briefly the collaborative space, if you like. And I'll log in to do that. Oh dear. Yes, good. This is where I have to type my entirely unmemorable password, character by character. Talk amongst yourselves. What's the last one? Fingers crossed. Ah, don't you love it? Try again. Sorry about this. It's such a ridiculous... If I told you what it was, you wouldn't believe me. But there we go. I think someone's just gone... You know when you put your whole forearm on the piano? I think somebody's done that with this keyboard for the password. Please let it be right this time. It's taking longer to think about it, so it probably is. What I wanted to show you is that, you do get a different view of the website. We're going to have one of those, aren't we? It must be right this time. Yes. Now, what you actually do, if we go back to the home page, you'll see that the home page is now changed to being logged in as a member of the Digipedia community. And you see, you get this typical comment, feedback, bookmarks, blah-de-blah-de-blah sort of page. And it's all, at the moment, there's nobody but the team on it. So it's all Susie's updated this, Chris has updated that, which is not the most riveting of conversations to read, but at least it helps. But at the top, the home page for people when you're not logged in has been repurposed, if you like, as a carousel. So you get the same functionality, the same ability to search the content in different ways. But you also get a little bonus. You can add a widget to your Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that, your own social network site of choice. And that will sit on, say, Facebook. Say you downloaded it to Facebook, it would sit on your Facebook space. And you could search Digipedia without having to go to Digipedia. You could search it using the widget. And all you do is you just copy the code that's there. That's interesting. There's no X to get rid of it. You just copy the code into your particular social media thing. So that's quite fun. Oh, good, it goes if you just click it. And the other thing is that's not yet done, because this is a pilot, but the building blocks are there, is to build a sort of structured query that you can save a search. So you can choose what sort of role you are, whether you're a newcomer or an absolute expert whiz. And you can choose what level of knowledge you want. And then you get a number of goals, which we're actually in need refining, really. One of the things we think, you want to do this, you want to do that, you want to do the other. And the idea is that you click on something, it will search, and because it's not actually set up, it comes back and says, sorry, we haven't got anything. But it would search Digipedia and present you with the articles. And you can then save that search and come back to it next time if you're working on something particular and you want that array of material. You can also set up groups. If you want to set up a group of people who are particularly interested in measuring impact, you can do that on Digipedia. You can see who already is a member. There's a bit more about the whole thing. And finally, I'll get there. Where is it? You can also, if you want to, did that? Yes. Also, if you want to, you can mark up sites in terms of sort of ranking them in a star system as to how useful or otherwise they were. Now, at the moment, this has only got 2 stars. Well, I think it deserves a lot more than that. So let's bump it up to 4. There we go. There it is. And then if we refresh that, it might come up with, next time you open the page, it'll come up with 4 stars. That's the idea. So, you can do that. But I think more importantly than that, what's needed is, there you go, is critical commentary on the content, so that content can be built that responds to your needs as a community, that you can get involved as a community. And I think that's it. I think I've gone on quite long enough, and I'm sure you're all starving, so thank you very much indeed.
My name's Frank Walker. I run UK Press Online, which is newspaper archives, which we sell to universities, but that's only because just go to mean to buy them, to make them available to everybody. But the one thing that bothers me all morning through this is we live and die by usage statistics are very important to us. That's what we tell universities why they need to buy us. And the one thing that we develop all our usage statistics based on is something that I haven't heard mentioned all morning, which is counter. I mean, we're continually seeking counter compliance. Now, we never get it because every time we get there, they change counter and we have to start again. But is counter a competitor to DIDSA, or is it part of DIDSA, or is it completely unrelated to DIDSA?
I'm going to pass that question to my colleague Eric.
Everything that we've done is more toward freely available resources that don't require, basically don't require you to buy anything. And because many of the resources that would be using ours don't have the resources to spend a lot of money on things. So we've got some things that cost in our toolkit as options, but by and large we've privileged things that you can get for free.
So if DIDSA were going to become the standard for making decisions in academic online research, I could simply park counter and forget about it because
I don't know that
Counter is much more based for journal articles for secondary sources. Secondary sources, and it's what the issues that have been explored here by Eric and his team and all the projects are much more related to kind of richer content, primary resources or open educational resources, where the issues and how they're used and embedded in use in research and teaching are different from the much more quantitative way that Counter approaches looking at journal articles. So there is possibilities for overlap between them, but it's not. You wouldn't dump Counter to look at this because it's a different set of things that it's thinking about.
Do we have any more questions? I know lunch is primary in your mind at the moment, but if there are any other questions, we could take one or two. Okay.
Brunella Longo, Information Management Advisor. I was thinking, at this stage, there is any sort of idea of integration with Turnitin or any other anti-plagiarism idea to, to be integrated within this type of tool?
Can I just ask for a point of clarification? Do you mean in order to combat plagiarism amongst students or to prevent plagiarism from our side?
Both.
Okay.
I would say both important from a business point of view.
Yes. Well, I think from our point of view, we have to operate within a community of trust, and we put our resources out there with a clearly assigned Creative Commons license, and we expect people to comply with that. We don't really actively check that people aren't ripping off sections of our site, for example, and then charging for it. On the second point, to do with students and plagiarism, I don't think we have any plans to include any tools for addressing that, because as far as we're aware, as educators, there are quite a number of tools available already that do that job. I can see Brian wants to come back on that point, so I'm going to pass the mic to him.
It strikes me that the flip side of plagiarism is reuse. And what you're doing with a Creative Commons license is encouraging reuse. So there are issues about how you measure reuse, and the JISC OER programme. And I think, Alistair, there's a forthcoming call which is going to be looking at ways of measuring reuse.
Susie, do you have anything you'd like to say on that?
No, I think that Brian makes a very good point, and that certainly with Didjapedia, we're making very clear what the Creative Commons basis for all the articles is, and we would expect it to be as open as possible so that people can use as freely as possible the advice and guidance they need. Yes.
Great. Okay. I'm going to take one last question, then we can all eat.
David Bennett from Coventry University. It's a feature request on these two information sources. RSS feeds, please, for updates.
For ours, we have
It's in the process if it is already there. Our
Yes.
developer has been sort of madly squirreling
Tweaking.
away to add new things, but that's one of the things that's...
Yes.
It's a perfectly succinct answer on which to close this session, I think. We could just thank Susie for coming.